Which paradox just mindfucks a person? Best of Reddit. Daily new uploads. Subscribe and like for more. Just do it. Brace Paradox. From Wiki, the observation that adding one or more roads to a road network can end up impeding overall traffic flow through it. The paradox was postulated in 1968 by German mathematician Dietrich Brace, who noticed that adding a road to a particular congested road traffic network would increase overall journey time. Very evident in cities, skylines. The bane of my cities in that game. The more roads, the more traffic. Don't forget to leave your comment. Also, the less traffic, the more traffic, but also the more traffic, the more traffic. A strange game. The only winning move is not to play. After a long enough time playing, I found that winding neighborhood roads, which are never the optimal pass through, really help cut down on street traffic and keep cars on arterials. i.e. lane selection and overall lane management is still a disaster without mods though. Know if you have ever heard of art game, then the never-ending road trademark sign is the way to go. That's really weird. Why is that the case? Does reducing the number of roads allow traffic to flow faster? The rest of the replies did not look at the paradox. The answer is that the new path may be a new shortcut, and so many cars use the new shortcut that were once on a main road that they change the flow overall. For example, a crucial intersection along the shortcut would have significantly increased traffic, which would affect other roads in unplanned ways. His idea was that if each driver is making the optimal self-interested decision as to which route is quickest, a shortcut could be chosen too often for drivers to have the shortest travel times possible. From Wikipedia. Imagine there is only two ways to get to work. If one of them is empty, optimal conditions, it takes 10 minutes, but because they are usually full of traffic, it usually takes 15 minutes. Now, add a shorter road that should only take 8 minutes if there's no traffic. In a perfect world, people would split between the three roads so that all roads provide the optimal travel time. 10 m for the first two and 8 meters for the third. But you don't want to be one of the suckers that took a 10-minute route when you could be one of the people optimally taking the 8-minute route, so you decide to risk it and hope that there's no traffic. If enough people do this, then that 8-minute route becomes more congested than the first two ever were. For example, turning an 8-minute strip into an 18-minute one, and any time saved by people taking the 10-minute roads is outweighed by the time lost by all the people clogging the one shortest route. Edit. This is the only part to paradox, but the rest of it is explained pretty well by the other comments. X. Here. https://www.reddit.com/r/comments/r/f7db4p6. The first though that comes to mind is that there are 2 more junctions for every additional road, which might be the cause of increased traffic. Does this apply to mini metro too? LOL. Not necessarily a paradox as much as a mindfuck, but it's a theorem in math called Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Formal mathematics can be thought of as the study of systems of axioms, and what you can prove from those systems. Axioms are essentially your base assumptions, and theorems are just different successive ways of combining the axioms to prove some larger statement. Gödel proved that, so long as your collection axioms can model basic arithmetic, which is to say basically any collection that isn't stupidly simple, there will always be things that are both true and unprovable with your axioms. It doesn't matter how many you have. Always. This was pretty unnerving to mathematicians of the time. What about the Song of Storms from The Legend of Zelda? In The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you travel through time between child and adult by using the Master Sword, and doing so you can come back to certain areas to get different items from both times. Well, one song that you learn is called The Song of Storms, and you learn it by going to the adult time and talk to a guy in a windmill. He tells you about a kid that came in 7 years ago and played a strange song and messed up the windmill and teaches it to you. After learning the song, you can now go back to being a child and go to the guy in the windmill and play the song to him, despite not knowing it before as a child. So questions are, where did the song come from and who taught who the song? Did the windmill guy teach it to Link, or did Link teach it to the windmill guy? That's a bootstrap paradox for you. So I know this is just a silly thing, but at my old work, my department was food service. In our prep room, you had to always wear an apron. Always. No exceptions. When leaving the prep room, you had to take your apron off to prevent cross-contamination. The bosses were trying to figure out where to put the hooks. Inside in the back of the door, or outside on the wall. Edit. Always proofread before posting. Feels like there should have been an anteroom between prep room and the larger room with apron hooks. That is part of a real solution. The other is to use disposable aprons and throw them out as you exit and put on a new one after a thorough hand washing in the antechamber. The aprons would be just inside the prep room or at the end of the antechamber. Edit 2. Prior to Edit 1 Wyatt, yay. Biodegradable plant cellulose aprons. Stop bitching at me. Edit. My most rapidly upvoted comment. About antechambers. Do not ever change. Reddit. It was at 545 upvotes while only 47 minutes old. Must have a vestibule. I'm trapped in an ATM vestibule with Jill Goodacre. Gum would be perfection. I'm sorry, is it sugarless? Put Joey on the phone. Joey, mumbles. Chandler, oh, like I haven't tried that. The trick is to have an intermediate airlock. Of course that would have required someone to put it in when they were building the place. That this page is intentionally left blank page. The page isn't even blank anymore. I actually saw one in a textbook before that said this page intentionally no longer blank. My favorite phrase that got published in an advanced math book, in case there is danger of no confusion. Don't forget to leave your comment. My girlfriend is a mathematician and it seems to me that textbooks in advanced maths are the funniest iterations of textbooks. She has shown me so many little jokes and quips hidden away inside her books. I've peruses a number of textbooks on a number of subjects, mostly humanities, and very few make even an attempt at being funny. I like this. The reasoning that goes behind those pages is actually really neat. Books are printed and bound in signatures, a way of imposing pages of content. They always come in 4S, so if your book has 199 pages of content, it'll be in 50 signatures. That means one page has to be left blank. This is something I deal with fairly often producing short-run marketing booklets and brochures. I'll have someone give me 13 pages of content. I then tell them they either need to cut one page of content or add 3 more. Sure, but they can put this page intentionally left, almost, blank. Fry becoming his own grandpa. He'd do the nasty and the pasty. Past nastification. How about these cookies? Sugar. Grandma Mildred. Lewis. He's dead. Sorry. You ever get the feeling you're only going with girls cause you're supposed to? Verily. This was actually explained quite well by the great philosopher, Ray Stevens. Many years ago when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as can be, this widow had a grown-up daughter who had hair of red, my father fell in love with her and soon they two were wed, this made my dad my son-in-law and really changed my life, for now my daughter was my mother cause she was my father's wife, and to complicate the matter even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy, my little baby then became a brother-in-law to dad, and so he became my uncle though it made me very sad, for if he were my uncle that would also made him brother of the widow's grown-up daughter who was of course my stepmother, father's wife then had a son who kept them on the run, and he became my grandchild for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother and it makes me blue, because although she is my wife she's my grandmother too, now if my wife is my grandmother then I'm her grandchild, and every time I think of it, nearly drives me wild, cause now I have become the strangest case you ever saw, as husband of my grandmother I am my own grandpa. Ray Stevens is a national treasure. It's me again, Margaret. The Banach-Tarski paradox is one hell of a mindfuck. It's basically taking something and rearranging it to form another exact copy of itself while still having the complete original, like taking a sphere, which has infinite points on it and drawing line from every point on its surface to the center, or the core of the sphere. Then you separate the lines from the sphere, but because there is infinite points you now have an exact copy of the original sphere. It's kind of hard to explain here so just watch the source video on it for a more in-depth explanation. One anagram of Banach-Tarski that I like is Banach-Tarski. Also, thanks Beresy. The first one took me so long to understand. It's a pun on the paradox. Came here to say this. Really it's less minficky because real objects are made up of discrete and finite particles, whereas the theory is based on the axiom of choice and infinite mathematical points, but the idea is whack. This didn't seem mind-blowing to me as a math person until I learned that you could do it by splitting the sphere up into only finitely many pieces, and only translating them, no stretching or anything. The Coastline Paradox. The more accurately you measure a coastline, the longer it gets, to infinity. I have 2 questions. 1. It couldn't possibly be to infinity, right? Even if you measure every grain of sand, the coastline will significantly grow, but it is still finite. 2. You can't measure a coastline perfectly accurately, because it's not static. Tides and water levels are always changing. I think the coastline part is just an example of something tangible with fractal-like qualities to make the concept more understandable. It might help to think of measuring the perimeter of the famous Mandelbrot fractal set in all its infinite detail. The area of the set is clearly bounded and finite, but the perimeter is not. Is this the 1D/2D version of the 2D/3D Gabriel's trumpet paradox mentioned elsewhere in this thread? Yes. A nice example is Koch's snowflake. https://wikipedia.org wiki Koch snowflake. A 2D figure with infinite perimeter but finite area. It turns out that working with continuous quantities is subtle, sometimes. The UK triple lock that people moving to the UK experience, and X200B, need proof of address and photographic it to open a bank account, need a bank account and photographic it to rent a place, need a bank account and an address to get sent your photographic it, and X200B. Checkmate atheists. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. Surely you don't need a bank account to get in it. Yeah, that part doesn't make any sense. You need proof of address. Likely they only accept a few kinds of proof. Recently applied and received my provisional driving license. Didn't really need to prove where I live, just needed to write it down on the form. This is like when I went online to schedule an appointment at the Apple Store because my phone wouldn't turn on and they sent me a verification text to my phone to confirm it was me telling them that my phone won't turn on. I cancelled my landline back in the mid-90s, even though we only had one cell phone in the house, over a similar battle with the phone company. Our landline was dead, so we walked to the nearest store and called the phone company. They told us that they couldn't schedule a technician to come out until we called them from the phone that was having the issue. I suffered from this problem recently in the States. What I ended up doing was renting a private mailbox. This is different from a PO box because you can use the street address and put suite for the box number. Looks just like an apartment address and no one is the wiser. Looks just like an apartment address and no one is the wiser. Depends. If you try and vote using that address, it's probably blacklisted. Saw it all the time, but still good for lots of other things. That's why most applications provide a permanent address and a mailing address. So how do people move to the UK? They don't. The UK moves to your country. Oh wait, they already did that. The unexpected hanging paradox. A prisoner is sentenced to death, and he is told that he will be hanged on a day next week, and on the day he won't be expecting it. The prisoner thinks to himself, well, if they hang me on Saturday, then I will expect it because there is no other possible day, so it won't be on Saturday. Then he realizes, well, it won't be Friday either, because I know that if I make it to Friday, they won't hang me on Saturday, so it has to be Friday, which means that they won't hang him on a Friday. He realizes this logic would continue for each day of the week, and so he concludes that there is no possible day for them to hang him unexpectedly, so he thinks they must not plan to hang him. On Wednesday they hang him, and he is completely surprised. The more you think about this paradox, the less sense it makes. I think I got this one figured out. The prisoner's logic was sound, until the very end. If he had continued reasoning, he would have known that any day he is executed is a surprise, even Friday, since it cannot be Friday per his originally reasoning. Friday will be a surprise. Friday was the name of the horse. The halting problem. You cannot create an algorithm that looks at a different algorithm and its input, then decide whether or not that algorithm will reach the end. This is too complicated to prove in a single Reddit comment. So, watch this video if you are interested. https://youtube/macm_mts_w4 Edit. Oh, bugger, I'll prove it myself. Consider this scenario. Algorithm P is a copier. Give an input, and it will output that same thing as two separate outputs. Algorithm H is the algorithm that predicts whether a different algorithm will reach the end. It will halt. It accepts two inputs, the algorithm and the input for the algorithm, and outputs yes if the algorithm halts and no if the algorithm doesn't halt. Algorithm F is the algorithms that says hello if it's given the input no. It gets stuck in an infinite loop, doesn't halt, if it's given the input yes. Now combine all three of these algorithms in order to make algorithm X. Feed algorithm X as the input to algorithm X. First thing that will happen is that algorithm P will spit out two copies of algorithm X and gives them to algorithm H. Algorithm H now has to decide whether algorithm X will halt if given algorithm X. If algorithm H says yes, X will halt. It will cause algorithm F to get stuck, and therefore X will not halt. If algorithm H says no, X won't halt. It will cause algorithm F to just say hello, and therefore X will not halt. Either way, algorithm H is wrong. It's impossible to design an algorithm that can correctly predict whether any arbitrary algorithm will halt given a given input. Love a bit of computer file. One of my favorites is Zeno's paradox. In order to leave my apartment, just for example, I have to walk halfway to my front door. Then I have to walk half the remaining distance. Then half that distance. Ad infinitum. In theory, I should never be able to reach the door. Now I love this paradox, because we've actually solved it. It was a lively, well-discussed debate for millennia. At least a few early thinkers were convinced that motion was an illusion because of it. It was so persuasive an argument that people doubted their senses. Then Leibniz, and/or Newton, developed calculus and we realized that infinite sums can have finite solutions. Paradox resolved. It makes me wonder what calculus we are missing to resolve some of these others. Edit. A lot more people have strong opinions about Zeno's paradox than I thought. To address common comments. 1. Yes, it's Zeno, not Zeno. Blame autocorrect and my own fraught relationship with homophones. 2. Yes, there are 3 of them. 3. If you're getting hung up on the walking example, think of an arrow being shot at a fleeing target. First the arrow has to get to where the target was, but at that point, the target has moved, so the arrow has to cover that new distance. But by then, the target has moved again, etc. So the arrow gets infinitesimally closer to the target, but doesn't ever reach it. 4. Okay, you think you could have solved it if you were living in ancient Greece. I profoundly regret that you weren't born back then to catapult our understanding 2 millennia into the future. 5. Yes, I agree Diogenes was a badass. I hope this covers everything. Reminds me of a joke. And X200B, an engineer, a physicist, and a mathematician are at a bar and see a beautiful woman across the room. They're all too nervous to talk to her, so the physicist devises a plan to work up the necessary courage. Walk half the distance from them to her, then half the remaining distance, and again, and again, and again. The mathematician says it won't work because they will never actually get to her. The engineer says, well, it's close enough for practical purposes. An infinite number of mathematicians walk into a bar. The first orders a drink. The second orders half a drink. The third orders a quarter of a drink. The fourth orders an eighth of a drink. The bartender pours 2 drinks and says, you guys really ought to know your limits. An infinite number of mathematicians walk into a bar. The first mathematician orders a beer. The second orders half a beer. I don't serve half beers, the bartender replies. Excuse me, asks mathematician number 2. What kind of bar serves half beers, the bartender remarks. That's ridiculous. Oh come on, says mathematician number 1, do you know how hard it is to collect an infinite number of us? Just play along. There are very strict laws on how I can serve drinks. I couldn't serve you half a beer even if I wanted to, but that's not a problem. Mathematician number 3 chimes in at the end of the joke, you serve us a whole number of beers. You see, when you take the sum of a continuously halving function, I know how limits work, interjects the bartender. Oh, alright then. I didn't want to assume a bartender would be familiar with such advanced mathematics. Are you kidding me, the bartender replies. You learn limits in like 9th grade. What kind of mathematician thinks limits are advanced mathematics? He's on to US mathematician number 1 screeches. Simultaneously, every mathematician opens their mouth and out pours a cloud of multicolored mosquitoes. Each mathematician is bellowing insects of a different shade. The mosquitoes form into a singular, polychromatic swarm. Fools, it booms in unison. I will infect every being on this pathetic planet with malaria. The bartender stands fearless against the technicolored horde. But wait, he interrupts. Thinking fast. If you do that, politicians will use the catastrophe as an excuse to implement free healthcare. Think of how much that will hurt the taxpayers. The mosquitoes fall silent for a brief moment. My God, you're right. We didn't think about the economy. Very well. We will not attack this dimension. For the taxpayers, and with that, they vanish. A nearby barfly stumbles over to the bartender. How did you know that would work? It's simple really, the bartender says. I saw that the vectors formed a gradient, and therefore must be conservative. Damn, right when that joke was losing me it pulled me back in. You've got meta comedy, you've got math jokes, science jokes, alien hordes, political commentary, and cheap puns. I am curious to know how your brain works. Not an original. I'm not a smart man, and my brother is an engineer. I remember when he told me 0.999 repeating is 1. I was like, no it's not. He asked me what 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 was. I said 3/3 or 1. He asked me if I could describe 1/3 another way, and I said 0.333. Oh, edited math a bit. Think of it this way, 1n equals 0.999, multiply by 10. 2, 10n equals 9.999, subtract 10. 3, 9n equals 9, divided by 9. 4n equals 1. Then, by the transitive property of equality, we can conclude that 0.999 equals 1. But wait, n equals 0.999. What happened? Nothing. They're equal to each other. Edit. I'm seeing a lot of similar comments, so if you don't want to read all of them, here you go. 1. Thinking in different bases to reach the same conclusion. 2. Saying that step 2 to 3 is wrong because they didn't notice the sneaky substitution I did with the subtraction. 10n. n equals 9.999. n, which is the same thing as saying 10n. n equals 9.999. 0.999. Substitution. Don't forget to leave your comment. I don't know about you, but I walk all the way to my door. Edit. Wow, my most upvoted comment. If you could give an infinite number of upvotes but the upvote button shrank by half every time you hit it, how many could you give? But do I owe you real lie? Source music starts playing. Source. Michael here. But where is here, and how much does it weigh? This makes me angry at my math education. I've done a bit of calculus in high school and college, but no one ever explained what the hell I was doing. I could take a derivative right now, but I don't know what it means. I had a great stats professor in college that helped me understand the why of math and stats, at least, and it definitely opened my eyes to how lacking my prior education in mathematics was. I always had to work twice as hard in math as I did in other subjects, and it wasn't until I got to college that I understood that all the way through my education. No one told me why math works. Once they did, it started to make sense. Definitely, like I am doing some Calc BC content and I can do derivatives, integrals, and more related to this, summation and power series rules, but don't understand what real-world application they have or why it works. It might help you to take a look at some calculus-based physics. That's when it all clicked for me. Anyway, you start with the equation for an object's position as a function of time. You want to know its velocity? That's just the rate of change of position, how fast its position is changing. So just differentiate the equation for position with respect to time and you have the equation for its velocity as a function of time. You want to know its acceleration? That's just the rate of change of velocity, how fast its velocity is changing. So just differentiate the equation for velocity with respect to time and you have the equation for acceleration as a function of time. When you start going in reverse, integrating the equation for acceleration to get the equation for velocity, you have to throw in some constants because you can't tell what the initial velocity was from the acceleration equation. And you can't tell what the initial position was from the velocity equation. Second edit. These actually come from paying close attention to what you're integrating, differentiating with respect to and being very specific with your limits of integration. This, https://physics.info/kinematics-calculus/ walks through the math if you assume constant acceleration, and this, http://web.mit.edu/materials/presentation/w01d3.pdf gives you a more in-depth look at the process and discusses non-constant acceleration. Thanks to you Eshage for the correction. IDK if that makes any sense, but it really helps if you sit down and think about what it physically means to find the rate of change, derivative of something as you walk through the math. I don't know that he addresses physics in particular, but just want to plug Paul's online math notes, http://tutorial.math.lamar.edu/ as the all-time best mathematics resource I've ever found. Edit. Quick edit to add that the most intuitive way I've found of learning integrals is looking at progressing from the formula for the circumference of a circle, to the area of a circle, to the volume of a cylinder. When you integrate the equation for the circumference of the circle from r equals 0 to r equals r, you're basically just adding up the circumference of every smaller circle you can draw within the original circle. This gives you the equation for the area of the circle. This, https://en.wikibooks.org wiki calculus volume, gives a good explanation of how to integrate the equation for area to get volume. You just have to realize that you're adding a new dimension when you start talking about volume. So it's a little more complicated and you have to make sure you understand what variable you're integrating with respect to and why. The way we teach math is completely backwards. I had almost the exact same experience, but my college physics professor was the one who explained why calculus worked and what I was really doing when I took a derivative or integral. I ended up getting an engineering degree and a math minor, but it wasn't until my more advanced theoretical math classes that they started to teach why math actually works instead of just how to solve problems. I really think that a lot of people who think they're bad at math would be really good at it if it were introduced as a self-consistent language rather than a collection of arbitrary rules. The ship of Theseus always kind of fucked me. So, there's this Greek dude called Theseus, and he's on a very long boat trip home. His ship needs repair. They stop, replace a few rotten boards, and continue. Due to the particularly strenuous nature of this very long trip, several more of these stops for repairs are made, until, by the very end, not a single board from the original vessel remains. Is this still the same vessel? If not, when did it cease to be? Douglas Adams once shared an anecdote of this concept in practice. I remembered once, in Japan, having been to see the Gold Pavilion Temple in Kyoto and being mildly surprised at quite how well it had weathered the passage of time since it was first built in the 14th century. I was told it hadn't weathered well at all, and had in fact been burned to the ground twice in this century. So it isn't the original building, I had asked my Japanese guide. But yes, of course it is, he insisted, rather surprised at my question. But it's burnt down? Yes. Twice. Many times. And rebuilt. Of course. It is an important and historic building. With completely new materials. But of course, it was burnt down. So how can it be the same building? It is always the same building. I had to admit to myself that this was in fact a perfectly rational point of view. It merely started from an unexpected premise. The idea of the building, the intention of it, its design, are all immutable and are the essence of the building. The intention of the original builders is what survives. The wood of which the design is constructed decays and is replaced when necessary. To be overly concerned with the original materials, which are merely sentimental souvenirs of the past, is to fail to see the living building itself. For me it's a very interesting example of how different cultures interpret the idea of continuity. For example, there is a shrine complex in Japan called Ice Shrine. https://wikipedia.org wiki Ice Grand Shrine rebuilding the shrine, which is the most sacred locations in Shinto. Every 20 years, the two main buildings are dismantled and rebuilt, by hand. by hundreds of volunteers. This ritual is based on the idea of impermanence, death and renewal in Shinto, but it's also done to keep the skills of constructing the shrine alive throughout the generations. The same is done in many shrines and temples throughout the country. This is interesting to me because you could argue that the cycle of destruction and renewal with new materials is precisely what gives it its continuity. Edit. Bloody hell. Thanks for the awards, guys. Glad you enjoyed it. This was a raging issue in the field of historical preservation. In the Western world we basically settled on the original material and construction is what counts. Frustrates the hell out of me for the buildings which were adulterated from the original designs and we could now build to the designer's original vision. Edit. And I am absolutely loving the raging discussion below this comment. Shows how both sides have really good arguments. Machu Picchu now has lots of recently rebuilt stuff grafted onto the ancient ruins. It's kinda annoying and deceptive. Unless you look at historical photos, there is no on-site indication that some of the walls and buildings you are viewing are just modern guesses as to what was once there. I sort of agree with ruins, in a sense, especially when you're making guesswork. But like cathedrals, the base is Romanesque, the upper is Gothic, and the annex is High Gothic because it had 6 builders and 12 pope changes over 200 years. If it burns down I have zero issue with building the whole thing to the Romanesque original plans if that's what the owners want to do and we have the plans. Isn't there something historical and interesting about a single building containing so many influences and compromises? Go. This is why there is only one solution. Ban fire. Fire bad. He addresses it in the fifth elephant. 2, this, my lord, is my family's axe. We have owned it for almost 900 years. See, of course, sometimes it needed a new blade, and sometimes it has required a new handle, new designs on the metalwork, a little refreshing of the ornamentation, but it is not the 900-year-old axe of my family, and because it has changed gently over time, it is still a pretty good axe, you know. Pretty good. The pedant in me needs to point out that this is Pratchett, whilst the other commenter was quoting Adams. Both outstanding, though. There's always the David Wong version. Say you have an axe, just a cheap one from Home Depot. On one bitter winter day, you use said axe to behead a man. Don't worry, the man's already dead. Maybe you should worry, cause you're the one who shot him. He'd been a big, twitchy guy with veined skin stretched over swollen biceps. Tattoo of a swastika on his tongue, and you're chopping off his head because even with 8 bullet holes in him, you're pretty sure he's about to spring back to his feet and eat the look of terror right off your face. On the last swing, the handle splinters. You now have a broken axe, so you go to the hardware store, explaining away the dark reddish stains on the handle as barbecue sauce. The repaired axe sits undisturbed in your house until the next spring when one rainy morning, a strange creature appears in your kitchen. So you grab your trusty axe and chop the thing into several pieces. On the last blow, however, of course, a chipped head means yet another trip to the hardware store. As soon as you get home with your newly headed axe, though, you meet the reanimated body of the guy you beheaded last year, only he's got a new head stitched on with what looks like plastic weed trimmer line and wears that unique expression of "you're the man who killed me last winter" resentment that one so rarely encounters in everyday life. So you brandish your axe. That's the axe that slayed me, he rasps. Is he right? No, because the axe didn't kill him, the bullets did. Of course he's not right. He was shot to death, not killed with an axe. Just a quick correction about the ice shrine. It is not dismantled and rebuilt every 20 years, but rather switched to another identical shrine every 20 years. So it's actually almost always in the process of being dismantled and rebuilt, in order for the new shrine to be ready for the switch every 20 years. And on top of this, it's done in phases over a few years for building. There is a parade of sorts where each neighborhood in town has a cart that holds wood or stones and is brought to the shrine. I lived in Iceland in 2013. They were replacing the white stones. I was able to participate in my local community's cart pulling. It was really a cool event and a special time for the town. Not only did we get to take part in something that happens every 20 years, but we each got to place a stone within the shrine grounds where the general public don't have access to. Additionally, devoted followers of Theseus saved all of the worn pieces as they were replaced, and rebuilt a ship with them. Now which ship is truly the ship of Theseus? Seems to be a great discussion piece, but in the end it comes down to interpretation. The ship simply underwent mitosis and divided into 2 daughter ships. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. The rowers are the powerhouse of the ship. I'm something of a scientist myself. I'm of the opinion that as the ship was rebuilt, since it was still continuously recognizable as a ship, it remained the same ship. The ship made from the original pieces. Although the pieces were the same matter the ship was originally constructed of, it does not have the continuity of shipness the first ship has. This is why I am uncomfortable with transporters and will always insist that Captain Picard give me a shuttlecraft. Tom Riker would like to have a word. I believe Thomas Riker would be inclined to agree with me, that he was the original Riker, and Will was the copy. The fake, in its efforts to imitate the real thing, is more authentic than the real thing. Probably. The real ship was the friends Theseus made along the way. Edit. Thank you for the silver, kind stranger. 3 Edit. Strangers. The friendship of Theseus. It's the same as Trigger's broom. 1 for the UK Redditors. As soon as I saw this, Trigger's broom popped into my head. Okay Broomer. Triggered. Link for the non-UK Redditors. https://www.youtube.com/watch?vecwallslay8hyvy. I think this paradox is easier with something that's named, because while physical components are traded out, the name is passed on. The example with the axe featured in John Dies at the end is a little more confusing, in that, it's just an axe, so it's hard to say if it's the same axe that killed the guy the first time. John Dies in the end is just a minfuck within itself. Did you read the last book? 2 readings and I'm still not sure which events happened and which didn't. Granted it's all fiction, but you get my point. In the UK series Only Fools and Horses, this paradox was given new life as Trigger's broom. Trigger was a Kevin. He worked as a road sweeper, and had just been given a small award and had his picture taken for the local papers, as he had been using the same broom for 26 years. He mentioned casually to the lads in the pub that in that time it had had 13 new heads and 14 new handles. When Del Boy asked in exasperation, how do we know it's the same broom? Then Trigger held up the paper with the picture and said, well, there's a picture of it, what more proof do you need? The original formulation had Theseus's ship being venerated in the harbor, long after he was dead. I think that's interesting, because otherwise every time Theseus sails it, it is in some sense his boat. But if Theseus is out of the picture, at some point it ceases to be the ship Theseus sailed. What is that point? Either way, definitely one of the most fun paradoxes out there. That's a thought exercise, not a paradox. It seeks a definition for identity. Once one is agreed upon, the question will carry an obvious answer. No, it's still a paradox. He started sailing from one dock and ends up at another dock. That's 2 docks, a pair of them, a paradox. It's more of a mindfuck when you personify the paradox. Our cells completely change out every 7 years. Are we still the same person? Yeah, except that's false. We don't change all our cells every 7 years. You don't get new brain cells, for example, or the lens of your eyes. Lots of our cells change every few weeks or even days. Jim is my enemy, but it turns out that Jim is also his own worst enemy, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, Jim is actually my friend. But, because he is his own worst enemy, the enemy of my friend is my enemy. So, actually Jim is my enemy. But, I see. Well, Jim needs to learn self-love then, lol. He also needs to learn that identity theft is not a joke. Don't forget to leave your comment. I know, right? Millions of families suffer every year. Michael. Oh, very funny, Michael. Pinocchio says my nose will grow after I finish this sentence. Does it? Depends on if lying is a necessary condition for growth or merely a sufficient one. I frequently see Pinocchio resolved based on the intent of the speaker to tell the truth or lie. Otherwise, his curse can be used to learn absolute truths you have no other way of proving. It could even speculate about future events if X will do Y is considered a true or false statement. It could even speculate about future events if X will do Y is considered a true or false statement. It's probably not the original intent, but this interpretation is so much cooler. I'm gonna ask Pinocchio questions about all the conspiracy theories I've ever heard to find out if they're real or not. Number. His nose grows when he lies. That's it. My nose will grow after I finish this sentence is a prediction of future events. Because it hasn't happened, you cannot tell the truth or lie about it. It's a statement that has no consequence over the actions of his nose. Bingo. People always try to change the paradoxical statement of, this sentence is false, to match Pinocchio, but by doing so they change the context and it no longer works. Newcomb's paradox. There are two boxes, A and B. A contains either $1,000 or $0 and B contains $100. Box A is opaque, so you can't see inside. Box B is clear, so you can see for sure that there is $100 in it. Your options is to choose both boxes, or to choose only box A. There is an entity called the predictor, which determines whether or not the $1,000 will be in box A. How he chooses this is by predicting whether or not you will choose both boxes. Adjust box A. If the predictor predicts that you will 2 box, he will leave box A empty. If he predicts that you will 1 box, he will put the $1,000 in box A. He is accurate an overwhelming amount of the time, but not 100%. At the time of your decision, the contents of box A, that is whether or not there is anything in it, are fixed, and nothing you do at that point will change whether or not there is anything in the box. It is a paradox of decision theory that rests on 2 principles of rational choice. According to the principle of strategic dominance, there are only 2 possibilities, and you don't know which one holds. Box A is empty, therefore you should choose both boxes, to get $100 as opposed to $0. Box A is full, therefore you should choose both boxes, to get $1,100 as opposed to just $1,000. Therefore, you should always choose both boxes, since under every possible scenario, this results in more money. But, according to the principle of expected value, choosing one box is superior because you have a statistically higher chance of getting more money. Most of the people who have gone before you who have chosen one box have gotten $1,000, and most that have chosen both boxes have gotten only $100. Therefore, if you analyze the problem statistically, or in terms of which decision has the higher probability of resulting in a higher outcome, you should choose only one box. Imagine 1 billion people going before you, and you actually seeing so many of them have this outcome. Any outliers became insignificant. In terms of strategic dominance, 2 boxing is always superior to 1 boxing because no matter what is in box A, 2 boxing results in more money. 1 boxing, on the other hand, has a demonstrably higher probability of resulting in a larger amount of money. Both of these choices represent fundamental principles of rational choice. There are 2 rival theories, causal decision theory, which supports strategic dominance, and evidential decision theory, which supports expected utility. It is pretty arcane but one of the most difficult paradoxes in contemporary philosophy. Robert Nozick summed it up well. To almost everyone, it is perfectly clear and obvious what should be done. The difficulty is that these people seem to divide almost evenly on the problem, with large numbers thinking that the opposing half is just being silly. Edit. I made some edits, to make it clearer. Edit. There are also an offshoot of Newcomb's paradoxes called medical Newcomb's problems. I've been in a situation like this before. I'll describe it. I went on an antidepressant, and there's a history of manic depression in my family. My psychiatrist told me that for some people, antidepressants bring out their manic phase, and they find out they have manic depression. They already did have manic depression, so it doesn't cause it, it just reveals it. She told me to watch out for any impulsive decisions I'm making, as that can be a sign of a manic phase. I was in line at a convenience store and thought, should I buy a Black and Mild? I don't really smoke, but for some reason it seemed appealing. Then I realized, that seems like an impulsive decision. But, if it is an impulsive decision, and I go through with it, and do indeed have manic depression, then I should just do it anyways. After all, it's not making me have manic depression. It's simply revealing something to me that I already had. On the other hand, if I don't do it, then I have no evidence that I have manic depression, meaning that there truly is less evidence, and therefore I have no reason to believe that I have manic depression. Expected utility equals don't buy the Black and Mild. Strategic dominance equals buy the Black and Mild. These situations aren't quite as easy to see, but they're interesting anyways. I'm doing quite well now and all indication is that I do not have manic depression. Doesn't it really come down to how often the predictor is correct? If it's 99% of the time, then you should 1 box. But as his accuracy drops, the expected value of 2 boxing increases until it eventually surpasses 1 boxing. Right? But the paradox is that the accuracy doesn't really matter, because when it's time to actually make the choice, the money is already in the box. No matter what, picking the 2 box option gives you an extra $100. So how can it have a lower expected value? The predictor can't go back in time and put more money in the box based on your choice. It's less of a paradox and more of a mind game. But since the predictor can only make decisions based on your past, the only way to win is to live your life truly believing that 1 box is the correct answer, and then change your mind to 2 box when the decision time comes. Which, obviously, you can't choose to do. So this is the one time my inability to make decisions might help me. The Boltzmann Brain. The idea goes something like this. In any system, there is a tendency for entropy to increase, which is another way of saying that everything tends to spread out. In a room full of gas, the gas fills the room. It does not pack itself in a corner. However, because of the weirdness of quantum fluctuations, it is possible for particles to just spontaneously arrange themselves into more complex configurations. It might take trillions and trillions of years, but if you watched that room full of gas long enough, sooner or later you would see all of the gas pack itself into one corner before spreading out again. Or, you might see the gas arrange itself into a fully functioning human brain, complete with false memories, senses, and a brief spark of consciousness. Of course, entropy would quickly take over again. The brain would dissolve back into gas almost immediately. This is also hideously unlikely. But over an infinite time, the laws of physics tell us this is not just likely, it is inevitable. So which are you, human, or Boltzmann brain, enjoying the briefest moment of your fictional life before you dissolve back into space dust? Edit. While this blew up, glad I was able to share the existential dread of Boltzmann brains with everyone. A few follow-up points. 1. True, this is not really a paradox, mostly just a mindfuck. 2. Something I left out of the original post to keep it simple. A Boltzmann brain universe, that is one briefly conscious brain, is arguably much simpler than the impossibly vast universe we think, we observe. Perhaps it is actually much more likely that you are Boltzmann brain than the human you imagine yourself to be. 3. I'm not a physicist. Hopefully I did a decent job of introducing the concept and answering some follow-up questions, but you might check out the Wikipedia entry, https://wikipedia.org wiki Boltzmann brain, or the PBS Spacetime episode, https www.youtube.com watch v equals NHY4Z32Keiko, on the concept to get a deeper understanding. 4. Although philosophically similar to the idea that we're all just the extremely unlikely product of random chance, the Boltzmann brain concept says something physically quite specific and distinct. That there is no universe, you are the only thing that exists, and only for a moment, and that by a certain interpretation, the laws of physics say this is likely. 5. On the other hand, yes, this is exactly like the DVD logo hitting the corner of the screen. There's a joke I heard on this. Dr. Humdinger visits the same ice cream shop every day. He sits at the counter and orders 2 ice cream sundaes, one for him, and one at the empty seat beside him. Every day, he finishes his ice cream and leaves the other. He pays for both and leaves. After a week of this, the owner asks about this. The doctor explains, I'm a theoretical physicist. It is theoretically possible for the matter above this stool to spontaneously coalesce into a suitable mate. I want there to be ice cream ready for them. The owner replies, well, okay, but there are plenty of people in this shop every day. Why don't you strike up conversations? Maybe you'll find a suitable mate among them. Sure, but what are the odds of that? That joke was used on the Big Bang Theory. The physicists found it insulting. They should probably find all of the Big Bang Theory insulting. We do. Oh, you're a physicist? Which Big Bang character are you? Go die in a fire. It used to make me angry, but from the point of view of someone not in academia, the word physicist means basically wizard, so they try to relate to something they know, and I understand that. Now, when the conversation happens, I try to respond like this, so, what do you do? I'm a physicist, oh, like Sheldon, almost, He's particle physics, I do condensed matter, blah blah. If they want to know more, it's a good way of starting a conversation, with a lowercase e. Otherwise, if they just wanted to be smartest, as it shuts them up real quick. With an infinite amount of time, the DVD logo will hit the exact corner of the TV. It's not just likely, it's inevitable. It's not just likely, it's inevitable. That's not true. An infinite amount of time doesn't guarantee all possible outcomes will come to pass. It's absolutely possible that the DVD logo's path will never lead to a corner. Pam claims she saw it hit the corner when she was alone. I believe she thinks she saw it. I saw it. Who told you I didn't see it? Did Jim tell you I didn't see it? Thank you for an existential crisis. Sitting at work and now once again thinking none of this shit matters. Don't forget to leave your comment. My professor made the same infinite time scale inevitability to explain that teleportation is possible. If you wait long enough, all your particles might quantum tunnel simultaneously into the same place, effectively making you teleport. I'll ask my thermodynamics prof if he knows about the Boltzmann brain. Well, since we're talking about the quantum world, there comes a point where very unlikely actually has a probability of 0. So it may well be that compounding the improbable would result in nothing far from normality. Fun to dream though. There is a difference between effectively 0 and actually 0. A Boltzmann brain is so unlikely that over anything approaching human time scales, even over the apparent age of the universe, we can be sure that it has never happened. However, that changes when you start talking infinite time scales. But this feels real. My marriage did too. I mean, it isn't really a paradox though, is it? The infinite hotel one is not exactly a paradox, but still a minfuck. A hotel has an infinite number of rooms and can accommodate an infinite number of guests, one per room. A traveler walks up to the front desk and inquires about a room. Sadly, it's Infinity Day and an infinite number of people are in town celebrating, so every one of the rooms is full. However, the clever desk clerk realizes he can still fit the traveler in by asking everyone to move into the room number that's one higher than theirs. So the person in room 1 moves to room 2, room 2 moves to room 3, etc. Now room 1 is free for the traveler. However, just as the traveler has been accommodated, an infinite busload of people arrives looking for rooms. The hotel is surely full now, right? Nope. The clerk realizes he can ask everyone to move into a room that's twice the room number of their own. So room 1 moves to room 2, room 2 moves to room 4, room 3 moves to room 6, etc. Now all the odd numbered rooms are empty and can be filled with the new guests. So in a sense, an infinitely full hotel is still infinitely empty. I hope the clever desk clerk knows how to efficiently deal with infinite complaints. Infinite clerks. Psychology. Psychology is defined as the study of the human brain. That would mean that the human brain is teaching, studying, and learning from itself all at the same time. In a sense, the brain is the teacher, the textbook and the student at the same time. If the brain were so simple we could fully understand it, we'd be so simple that we couldn't. Congratulations, you've discovered biology. And biology is just fancy chemistry. And chemistry can be boiled down to physics. And physics are really all about math. And math is really fucking hard. Relevant XKCD, https://www.xkcd.com/435/ Welp, it is fair to say you blew my mind just now. Plus, the brain is the only thing ever to have named itself. Paradox Interactive, every time they release a new DLC, everyone loses their damn minds. Stellaris has entered the chat. More like Unplayable Lag has entered the chat. I'm not sure if it's considered a paradox, but I've gotten into some heated arguments over the Monty Hall problem. Say there's a game show where there's 3 doors, and behind one of the doors is a prize. After the contestant picks door number 1, the host, who knows where the prize is, shows the contestant an empty prize behind door number 2. The host offers the contestant the opportunity to switch his/her choice from door number 1 to door number 3. Mathematically, the contestant has a 2/3 chance of winning if they switch, and only 1/3 chance of winning if they stick with their original choice. This is just simple stats. Scenario 1. You pick the car, host opens door with goat behind you, switch and get goat. BOOO. Scenario 2. You pick goat 1, host opens goat 2, switch and get car wahoo. Scenario 3. You pick goat 2, host opens goat 1, you switch and get car wahoo. So, long story short, when you pick on the first round, you want to lose and you have a 2/3 chance of losing, then switch giving you a 2/3 chance of winning. The bootleg paradox. The main example is Beethoven, so I'll use him. If you were to go back in time, you would see Beethoven, but when you get there, you cannot find Beethoven anywhere, but you have all of his music sheets. So you create all of Beethoven's music, so technically, you are Beethoven. Now the real question is, where did the music come from? And how did the name Beethoven come to be? Edit. There. I put in periods edit 2. If you could go back in time. Isn't that Bootstrap? Yes, the Bootstrap Paradox. It's named for a 1941 novella by Robert Heinlein, writing under the pen name Anson MacDonald. Excellent story. If you haven't seen the show Dark, you should check it out. It has some Bootstrap Paradox themes in it. Don't forget to leave your comment. Also, become a front-end web developer. You'll come across Bootstrap paradoxes from time to time as well. I laughed and then I sighed. In my opinion, a Bootstrap paradox is evidence of prior time travel. Nothing can be set up as a time loop, open or closed, without time travel being involved. There was some equivalent of Beethoven, or someone from the future decided to go back and create a fictional composer, but either way, it didn't start as a loop. Then, circumstances propagated, and the end result may be a loop with no apparent origin, but there was one. You just can't get to it anymore, even with time travel. That's the real headburster for me. Even if you can travel freely through time, events may happen that entirely delete occurrences, items, or people from the timeline beyond your ability to retrieve. In my opinion, a Bootstrap paradox is evidence of multiple universes. Beethoven exists in the universe you traveled from, but not the one you traveled to. That is one way to resolve the paradox. Yet, Song of Storms. Can a man drown in the fountain of eternal life? Yes, the fountain only prevented aging. Drink the fountain and get beheaded, you dead. What about the fountain of invincibility and immortality? Then it depends. Does the water from the fountain of invincibility and immortality grant its powers as soon as the water is inside your mouth? Or does it have to be absorbed into your body? How much water do you need to be granted the powers? Is it just a drop 6 ounces 12 ounces? Does the fountain just make him never age? Or does it prevent him from suffering physical harm? It just prevents him from dying, which means he's fated to be drowning for all eternity. Cole's Law. Very simple. Some love it, but I can't stand it. Very common. 2. What is Cole's Law? Cabbage, mayo, vinegar and some other stuff. Well, that's disappointing. I actually wanted a paradox. Well, if you eat too much Cole's Law you might need a pair of docs. Fuck you. Our angry upvote. Why the fuck did I Google that? Quite the mint fuck. Huh. I read the other comments and I still Googled it. What gives you the right? Also, how dare he? You could technically create every movie that has ever existed, even entirely new movies. Secret documents, by typing 0s and 1s on your computer. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. Have you heard of the Library of Babel? It was a book written by an Argentine man about a nearly infinitely large library of hexagonal rooms filled wall to wall with books. Every passage of text that has ever been and ever will be written can be found in the library. However, these passages are diamonds in the rough, as most books are just pure gibberish. If you want to experience the Library of Babel for yourself, there is a website available that has been coded to be as accurate to the story as possible. Searching Library of Babel in Google should put you in the right direction. Edit. Good to know my highest upvoted comment is showing the world this hidden gem of a website. Have you heard of the Library of Babel? It was a book written by an Argentine man about a nearly infinitely large library of hexagonal rooms filled wall to wall with books. Every passage of text that has ever been and ever will be written can be found in the library. However, these passages are diamonds in the rough, as most books are just pure gibberish. If you want to experience the Library of Babel for yourself, there is a website available that has been coded to be as accurate to the story as possible. Searching Library of Babel in Google should put you in the right direction. Hex 3139 C1P 857 Hexamls Rock 8 VD0 Osksold Feek 61 Wo 16 DFE 440 YZL 25 KLH Seek 0 W6 PIF 3 DPX K8 I 7 RIU 73 Gwesm 5X6 MI 472 MBP ZP the 8th of August 99 QFU 0 CJ01 UP 6 CCTBN1 K8 GQ6 CBJPC 8 HF 3 TIF 5 EDX Magnetic 6471 ZH2D9 ZAG 6 APAM 5W9 SSLDT9 STUB 30 R8B7X8 TOC 377426 Akibu 2620 WAR 89 EOC 459 R7 MIJPAC 50 VF STAI 2 CTQC7 MIFT 07 HJNR99 N6 Rigoff SI 1 JD7K4 IUF1 IARM KCHDR 8 F5 K3 H7 FSUX 3 FCL7 E70 BVRUAX 0x4 YFJ4 ERAVWX 1 M593 CR 3154 F760 to a 4 SEC for 9 I53 0H8 V1 MSJWX MS 5884 Mortgage 5 RE905 Itage PPO8 DISP 6Q 29441 Aqua 06 DPPL 4A33 FNMSS 2QNSN 550 HULW 06 M1K5 of SAZL 2X9 or 8 to 9 by 652 It's 6 XOP V73B1S. VJNNZKKTFT6 Raziazank 6XGD7 AHA 2E0X5Z0WMQ6UXC374 DBPR8RNHDW254I1 TF7HGQ04SW0LTZP5 EBWBZL4PTG9F4BV9 BZNO0 is 6FVHLHQCXK74 HXIASU5V42L1C71 SEC6 KMHA 387 HX74X5ZSN7 FO7M9I IPGA 113 D1 EVLO 6 Catch 072 Odd 8 BMates and Jgokux 3 TM 129 CRNRK5 IKZ83 JTMDDGHGGM 1228 WUG 6 Dzwodwexa 2 IMG 6 Shfiztilx 2 Brashias 6695 FS3 CM9N 484 MUM 4S4 Buggen 795 GC 782 WPS 6F5 Colgs 752 GX 41 OFL 79 1E80 GUAS 19 E5 J10 1762 LC5 P345 L29 Quack 9 F7 HL4 CATS 53 BQMWS MHL1 K01 Jlgortem Nefsu 2Y3 TR31 W0 MJQM88 Psi1 SRPM5Z5 Yo10X7 Wismkj1 Vwfl 64 U5 Pugkrl 3 Vwfu 93 as of 8 VQS8 Skithen Churu 2 BDSHC5 I'm 9 BM5 A29 Hu I3 Fix 7 Mechno 5K53 QV 586 Jldeok Deck Forge 2033 YJR65 GU 9 YVQ1C303XX BR9HF4 GRH2XH2 Tknok 8 Xabomotl 6 QAA51 B3WV4CC9 IL5 Fquix 91 PM JRH1X GF96 on 328 PFVFN0 NQNG6 Ensryash 4 Agu 6 Q7054 Weshring 9 CQRXW3 So7X TVM77 Barifdur 8 PX8 LHFRCK4 OG1Y V2s R0 GCQ862 SHT8 of Kepm 57 TKJNDNL0 Rajoljaram MIBQ9 MT5 IBT23Y0 Twanse1 UFC 36 YLH7W74 G2XZNHX38 AKUVXKFA 0 LJVPSB3UI1 UPSKFO 8 AJ Tagupka 66 C0 GAZ 53 F3 LP7 CYI6 QUIT 0 OJ 0 FIMK 800 107 GH21XBO1XSQNZ9VTGRGM6WJY5HF2UG65V1 Ictral Remove 7Z8TRV0 TEDX7 Sleaze 4NSPRRK53s 4 ECA 5MTW1Z Lib 0J894 IBFJK81 Gulfly 68 GFRWFHCQQ896 NLRC2 GS2M11Y52 ERLQ 2992 UD83 IJVK4 GK3 TF Fortin Jodjbx 8 QNC 34 T92 VH4 UNSN 1D84 DO 0 H662 BJZX 1 Nofli 4 Zlhsbk T0 S8 TSNS 5 DID FitGaj 6 Gal 6 FQRO 9 QXKZNH7 V7 Mu V9 Skip 2 MR0 Viad Kawa 5 NT3S91 W1 BW2 SW0 J150 LXZ3 PNPN CJ1 GP UC 902 CVB1 Urkusquils 44 BV4 Quack 5X79 Bez 6H3 XR1 SWIFTRX 93 Mfuchs 2 SJVQ PK87 K920802 Orkublat HEC0 X Bes 6ZKC3 NM9G88 Sukvk 707 Klo 0 Vuvj 7 Die 5 Ulfka 3 INS 3 K9X4 IW94 MG7 DMC1 Pakret 6 V9208 IATS 9 CGJD045 QH5 Edge Gate 59 Law 4 Psi 6 ASW1 Woododi 45 If 0 GV6 JD 0 DQ 0 Ovnx 8 T0 10 Giafwux 580 X2K32 Pimo 3K3 UK8 IP38 KQU9606 Z5 F7 Icon 38 VTR 944 IHU 1 KDF 86 Co 33 Nia 164 5 C18s Pabe 67 Safra 7 RK 1917 Grabak Bomb 60 Jejcom 14 N1 Gar 0 Wokf 7 Advlexiki 9 AAQ4 Om 9 FXJ 15 E06 UTUF 6 Quixm 0 CQ2 FS8 Alute 47 LCH4 YJL0 EZR 4 Zuck 9 Reichs 2 PJZ9 Bdistzilzixen Sox Vag 4 I86 NIP 26 Qu 4 CG0 RT2 BTKL8 Twy9 NZRPBK4 ISDA VUTFO 0 D7 Yanks 3 Tbubudge 0 W0 Chi 50 WLHW6 Cars 8 WQS7 MLU2 MV2 BT3 MCDLBVM83 Q2XVR4 My6 LIC3 FLR3 P2 CRB08 WW4XKKWG8 PO 740 Xwipox Mid 2 Zeta01 ERV 2 VT60A1A9 Polgxel 4 VT2 E1G4 LK3CH3 Gusk Meskva 6I778 TL800 VZXW7 Zhewapwood 9 89s Vkprefdxf4 and 9HR8U54 VGU41 TDU57024 W443 Flpak 8UBD8 Vibsk 6V83 FKJ67 DOV88 HOR3YDM8 OZ1 LMHMW062E3DP3 Reprot 7 CTO90 Q3GX0 Wobruxy 35 WZZ9 LA1 Isaacsfuck 7 WVPV2 M8 MNLM MSV2 IBJM3 and 95 of over 8,270,024 GQPP5X7 Quab 6 XGUZG7 REXXKOI 4W7 CMCAF 32 ZMU9 NIVQUK 9 LBS9 NGCSN81F4Z1 GCPMZ0 9C1 WAGUM 950 WEV20 WLINWAR SECMP 9Z1 PBG0M6I1 W54 FVZZ6LT 19C 76 Ifmi Isaac 7 I5 QZ Q4 Wolfgloket 9 Shtwog Drug 99 DLT 8 V9 and 9 R64 J4 J0524 Tlkapisks Kazmklof 1 C9 V2 KGB HW91 D1 Takik 89 Geneva 50H4 UA0 Box 7 AGI 28 T81 N672 QJRB 8 Oswich 7 Ver 7 Rix by 27 Afatlks 4 N5 Pay 8 G PA2PMBW5PAA67 STNGSW0. MQ9160XRBKD8X11 Edge 6 Hey2 Luxoti3 YCOX 2 BRLD17s Moose 47 Row 4 Mo2S3NT11S Edge KMUXD6WBT22 Pugs 1B1 248 OS7 GUG3C2 Ski 4DN5 FEMG4ENV97 IW7 Judges 4 Dex Car 5 Cree 77Z75 EHEAP 2 Zevx Kasai 0 V6 OVJ 1 UI8P5 EXZTW68 Suez 4 Wahok 2 TMK78 RX Bridge 1 QS97Z9ZMO6 Noised 76 Bodge Wall 1 Shelf 5 Volume 20 Page 226. I'm pretty sure it says drink your Ovaltine. I've held this idea ever since I was taught programming in the 80s. Who needs a million monkeys when all you need is a self-correcting algorithm and a few hundred terabytes of space? Not a paradox, but a minfuck. Imagine a drop of water forming at the tip of a leaf in the Amazon jungle, high up in a tree. That drop is teeming with life, right? Microscopic life forms, interacting with each other, living their life, right? Kinda as if it was a tiny world, or a tiny universe in there. The life forms in there more than probably have no idea they are in a water droplet. They have no idea there's a whole world beyond it. They're so fucking tiny, how could they know? I mean, we don't know what lies beyond our observable universe, do we? That drop falls towards the floor, and during its fall, life in there keeps thriving and keeps going on, and then the drop hits the floor. A hot stone and evaporates, poof goes the entire micro world. Gone, in the blink of an eye, and not a single life form in that drop could do anything to prevent it. I mean, even if there was intelligent life in it, it simply might not have had the means to discover what lies beyond their observable universe. The water droplet. They had no idea they were in a droplet, falling to their inevitable doom. For them, the time it takes for the droplets to form and fall down might feel like an eternity, even if for us it's really short. After all, humanity feels like an eternity for us. But on a historical scale, we've existed for a ridiculously short amount of time. Entire civilizations might have existed in there while the droplet was forming and falling. Imagine that our observable universe is the water droplet and we are the life forms teeming inside it. For all we know, our universe might currently forming on a leaf or even falling already, and at some point we'll hit the floor and we'll be gone. Just like that. Nobody will give a fuck, just like we don't give a fuck about that tiny universe in the water droplet that just disappeared. We might be one of the many universes that disappears like this, just like that water droplet is one of the many, and not a single person could have known or prevented this. I've heard this isn't trying to comprehend Chicago. Of course we have free will, we have no choice. Just like Sartre said, we are condemned to be free. If you asked Rick Astley for his copy of Disney Pixar's Up, do you think he'd give it to you? Because think about it, he's never gonna give you up. But, at the same time, if he doesn't give you up, then he's let you down. But he's never gonna let you down. So which is it? At that point, he'll just have to say goodbye, and desert you. But he said never gonna run around and desert you. But maybe you bring some whipped cream into the bedroom and he could desert you. He may have already answered this question. One of his AMA responses, https://www.reddit.com/am_I_am_really_really_am_I_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_am_ youtube.com/watch?vecals.dlzxrzfcys from the AMA was also really funny. Go fuck yourself. Still my favorite comment. That was the greatest rickroll in the history of rickrolls. A paradox? You mean one of those things that can destroy the universe? No, number he means 2 doctors. The universe either has to be infinite or we're in a box. However, if you ever reach the end, that closes the universe in, it would be impossible for something to not be on the other side of the enclosure, at least to us, since nothingness doesn't really exist in human perception. Those aren't the only options. Imagine space that loops. If you go a certain distance, you reach your starting point again. Walking on a sphere is like this. You're on a 2D surface with no boundaries, yet it's finite. It loops around. Takes experience to get most decent jobs, but how do you get a good job without experience? Work a shitty job. My local supermarket in the application said that I needed 1 year retail experience. Hey, here's a tip. Apply anyway. If you get into the interview, then their previous requirements clearly don't matter. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. For sale, Daniel Boone's original axe. We have replaced the axe head once and the handle twice. Time was created a long time ago. Time flies when you're having fun. Measure beetles when you're not. Gabriel's trumpet. Imagine a horn shaped like this. https://www.google.com/ingress?imgirl equals https://beliefnet.com%2f2f-2f-media%2f-photos-with-attribution%2fangels%2fangel. Horn JPG %3 fars %3d1 divided by 26w %3d 400 and ingrefferal equals https %3a %2f %2f www.beliefnet.com %2f inspiration %2fangels %2f galleries %2f their 7 archangels and their meanings asks and docid equals gag 7 alz qpum and bnid equals jsk 9 qtegpm %3a and vet equals 10 ruk uj buiazp xl avog 0 qmwas gamma I and w equals 400 and h equals 300 and bill equals 890 and bu equals 1536 and q equals angels %20 horn and ved equals 0 ruk uj buiazp xl avog 0 qmwas gamma and I act equals mrc and uact equals 8, but is infinitely long. Let's say the diameter at the start is 1 foot, and every foot of length, the diameter is cut in half. Now let's figure out how much paint it takes to paint the inside of the horn. Well, that's infinite. It has an infinite length, so it has an infinite surface area. But wait, there is upper bound for the volume of this horn. You can intuitively put a box around the first 2 feet and realize that as the horn gets thinner and thinner, it can fit in the space left in the first 2 feet. So then if you were to just have a bucket of paint the size of that box, you could just dump all the paint in there and it would fill up the trumpet, right? But yet, it has an infinite surface, so maybe not. You can use calculus to find a finite solution to an infinite problem. It's actually a topology problem. Topology sucks, from my limited understanding. Basically surface area has rules that don't make intuitive sense because surface area is 2D, so an infinite amount can be in any volume. The problem goes away when you realize that any 2D surface in 3D space must have a width in any physical reality, and so the logic about it being infinite or infinitely curved around itself and things like that can't actually happen in real life. So applying the same logic doesn't matter. It's actually a topology problem. Sorry, this isn't true. Me, with a math degree, topology is about spaces with no metric, no way to measure length, surface area, etc. Imagine everything is made of rubber. This paradox is about surface areas and volumes, so it is not about topology. My fav ones are anything related to time traveling and changing the future so that the traveling back in time wouldn't be necessary and therefore nobody traveled back in time and changed the future. To say it quite simple, if you go back in time and kill your grandfather before your parents were conceived, then you could never have been born. If you were never born, then you never went back in time and killed your grandfather. That means you were born. However, it also means you did kill your grandfather, which means you weren't born. Time travel is impossible. The moment that time travel is invented is the moment that it's destroyed. It creates unlimited customization possibility of the universe, which makes all possibilities occur simultaneously, which means that someone somewhere sometime will decide that time travel was a bad idea, go back in time and kill the person that made time travel or make it not possible in some way. There will never be time travel because time travel is its own worst enemy. This is an interesting conclusion. This assumes that altering the past impacts the person from the future who altered. What if time travel were to create you ex nihilo from a causation standpoint? In effect, you could go back in time and tell yourself not go back in time, so there were two of you. Then that you goes back in time to when you arrived and there are three of you, etc. I'm upvoting this because it's been a long ass time since we got a paradox question on the front page. Okie tanks. How anything began. Whether you believe in creationism or the Big Bang, etc. Where did the beginning come from? God had to have started at some point. Those atoms that exploded into the universe had to come from somewhere. Where the fuck did anything come from? A long time ago actually. Never. And also now. Nothing is nowhere. When? Never. Makes sense, right? Like I said, it didn't happen. Nothing was never anywhere. That's why it's been everywhere. It's been so everywhere, you don't need a where. You don't even need a when. That's how every it gets. Forget this. I wanna be something. Go somewhere. Do something. I want things to change. I want to invent time and space. And I know it's possible because everything is here, and it probably already happened. I just don't know when to start, and that's exactly where it started. Thanks, Bill. He's great. I watch that video once a month at least. Our unexpected Bill words. Existential crisis in 3, 2. I agree about some uncaused creator, but if you can just say God made everything, you just as equally say the universe made everything. I'm curious how that leap of logic is made between uncaused creator, God. This is one of my number one rhetorical questions I ask back when I'm in a faith argument. When they inevitably ask about the creation of the universe, I say, I don't know, and somehow I meander the conversation to being, who created God? He just is. Okay, so if that's an acceptable answer to you, why is the universe just is? Not? Because something must have created it. Why? Nothing created God. He just is. This concept is obviously not foreign to you, but God is bigger than I can comprehend. That's the nature of God. And likewise, the nature of the universe is bigger than I can comprehend. It's pretty damn effective to making people really get the wheels turning. Could a god like that microwave a cheese and bean burrito so hot that even he himself cannot eat it? If he can't, that's something he cannot do, and therefore he's not omnipotent. If he can, then he cannot eat it, which is something he cannot do, therefore he's not omnipotent. In other words, true omnipotence is impossible due to the existence of microwavable cheese and bean burritos. I think the best answer to that is that if this god is omnipotent, a cheese and bean burrito so hot he cannot eat it isn't a meaningful concept. The example I like to use is a rock so green you can't touch it. It just isn't a thing since greenness has no effect on touche ability. In the same way, hotness doesn't affect edibility if you're an omnipotent god. Also, I have scarring on the inside of my mouth that boldly states nothing is too hot if you're not a pussy. Don't forget to leave your comment. The universe and therefore all physical space is either infinite or there is an end to it. That means that either an infinitely large thing exists or there is a physical line over which nothing exists. Both of those things seem impossible, but one or the other must be true. This is actually an axiom. The exact opposite of a paradox, incidentally. The exact opposite of a paradox is in fact a paradox, which is a paradox in itself. If a defeated country in war is outright annexed de facto, not by treaty, the war never ends, since one of the belligerents, no longer existing, cannot sign the treaty. That's presuming the only way to end a war is by signing a bilateral treaty. Freewill and causality is always a fun one for me. Basically, here's how it goes. Premise 1. The universe is handled by reactions. Physical chemical act that if one has the correct knowledge information available to them, could be calculated with 100% accuracy. Premise 2. Our brains run on chemical reactions and are thus 100% predictable. Premise 3. Our brains are what let us think. Premise 4. Free will is the ability to think about and decide on what decision to make in a given circumstance. Conclusion. Free will does not exist because if our minds are just a set of chemical reactions, then with the right data could perfectly predict our actions. A gingerbread man sits in a gingerbread house. Is he made of house or his house made of him? He screams for he does not know. This sentence is false. Don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. Yeah, true. Pretty easy, that. Though to be honest, I may have heard it before. I'm going to answer no on that one. Sorites paradox. Removing one grain of sand from a pile doesn't destroy the pile, because one grain is trivial to the rest of the pile. Likewise, removing another grain from that pile wouldn't be significant either. Removing a third wouldn't be significant either, and etc etc. But if each grain of sand you remove is equally insignificant to the one that you removed before it, when does the sand pile cease to be a pile anymore? At what point do you cross over the threshold where object X becomes something else? And how do we determine a significant threshold? Edit. A lot of people seem to be hung up over the definition of a pile. But the paradox isn't restricted to just that example, it can be applied to any sort of continuum. For instance, how many hairs do you have to shave off before you no longer have a beard? How do we decide the cutoff for people to sign their own legal documents? After all, isn't a 17-year and 364-day-old more or less identical to an 18-year-old? No raindrop feels responsible for the flood. But it's not equally insignificant, it's an increasing percentage of the remaining pile. My absolute favorite is the Freewill Paradox. If God exists as is stated in the Bible, then he is omnipotent, all-powerful, has the ability to do literally anything one could conceive of, omnipresent, is everywhere at once at all times within all of time, omniscient, knows literally everything, the complete summation of all knowledge that has existed, currently exists or will exist. The Bible also states that God gave man free will, the ability to believe what you want, do what you want and be in control of your own life. We choose to believe in God or not believe in God, be good, be evil, etc. Even in all God's power, he won't influence our choices directly, they are completely our own. The issue here is this: if God is omniscient and knows all things, then he knows our past, present and future. He knows every tiny little detail about our lives, beginning to end. Even if there are multiple timelines, he knows every detail about alternate reality as too. There is not one single fact unknown to God. If this is in fact the case, and God created all with full knowledge of everyone's entire life, then free will cannot exist, as our future is known and predetermined. If not, then God is not omniscient and is an imperfect and flawed being capable of failures and mistakes. Either God gave us free will, or he is omniscient, but it cannot be both. Independent knowledge of the outcome does not mean the choice wasn't made by the individual with free will. I know my wife. I know what she likes and her habits. I know when it's 8 p.m. and she walks into the kitchen after watching QVC advertising salty snacks, she's going to make popcorn. Did me knowing that she was going to microwave a buttery bag of light, fluffy popped corn mean she didn't still make the conscious decision to go and do it? Of course not. Knowledge of the outcome does not mean the choice was not still made. You don't even need a religious angle for this one. The question is the universe deterministic, meaning are all events from the Big Bang until now, including the chemical reactions in your brain that are you, the result of an unbroken chain of cause and effect? Or at the quantum level, is there some level of true randomness in there? If it is the prior, then free will is an illusion. It's the butterfly effect cranked up to 11. Everything is the perfectly predictable result of cause and effect, and you have never chosen anything, just felt like you did because the chemicals in your brain driven by that chain made you feel that way. Rocco's Basilisk. To anyone who wasn't already familiar with this and is about to find out, I apologize in advance. Reminds me of this paradox too. Eskimo. If I did not know about God and sin, would I go to hell? Priest. No, not if you did not know. Eskimo. Then why did you tell me? Not a serious paradox, but my friend came up with this theory that since there are infinite numbers, there has to be infinite names for these numbers. Therefore there's a number somewhere in infinity named Garrett. What if your eye sees the color red, but mine see purple, but we get taught the color is blue and never think more about it? Funny enough, this is happening right now. We can surmise through literature that colors like purple and orange weren't really seen until a few thousand years ago. Today it is well known that there are people colorblind in a few different ways. As you discuss this with people, you will also find people who can't differentiate colors as well as others. Makes me wonder what colors people will a couple thousand years from now, as our eyes develop more and more refined cones. My hope is being able to see into the infrared spectrum. Heat vision would be awesome. It's a little paradox called depression. It starts with a depressed person that is depressed because he isn't going out and isn't doing anything with his life because of his depression. Then, because of how much he is depressed, he doesn't go out, which makes him even more depressed, and the cycle repeats itself infinitely. It has fucked me for a long time. Edit. To answer a lot of people's question, I did not write that event. There's like 1,000 or threads to do that. This is just another take on the two problems paradox that I modified a bit for comedic effect, I guess. Sorty if it looked like I was not answering the question properly. It's the same as those people who claim that everyone can have their dream job if only they try. Unless some people's dream job is mopping floors, collecting garbage, or processing chickens at the Tyson plant, everyone having their dream job would suck. This doesn't mean people shouldn't aim high, but we can all be a little more appreciative of the people who make sure we have clean floors, empty trash bins, and strawberries on the supermarket shelves. Those folks may not be living their dream, but they're contributing to ours. It's less a woe-min fuck than a shit-min fuck. If we start acknowledging that toilet scrubbers and burger flippers are good people with rich inner lives just like us, not to mention the Indonesian sneaker stitchers and the Congolese diamond miners that are farther away and easier to ignore, we have to start reckoning with the fact that every time we consume something, we make ourselves the end of a great big chain of suffering and exploitation. It's a lot easier to decide that the people doing the grunt work deserve to do it because they're unambitious or stupid or lazy. To paraphrase The Good Place's spin on Marx, there's a chicken sandwich on Earth, where if you eat it, you hate gay people, and it's delicious. Crusaders Kings 2 is a pretty complicated paradox game if you ask me. If you are enjoying the video, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my new videos. When I first started dating my now wife, she told me she had a rape fantasy, and she wanted me to try it. The paradox is that you can't rape someone that wants to be raped. I really had a hard time getting her to see my semantical stance on that one. Rape fantasy equals rape. Paradox solved. It's referred to as consensual non-consent in the BDSM community. It's the rape equivalent of having your 20-plus-year wife dress in a HS cheerleader outfit, for all intents and purposes. At least when done right. Okay, but what is your address? That's not a paradox. Your wife wanted to act out a rape fantasy, not actually be raped. Simply asking a person what foot do they start moving with first, it makes them question themselves every time. Unless you've been in marching band or the military. The best simple paradox is this sentence is a lie. If it is false, then it is true. But if it is true, then it is false, and so on. If it is true, then it is false. But if it is false, then it is true. And it is an endless loop with really no answer. I've had my mind fucked by the seemingly endless amount of paradoxes in religion. The main one that stands out is this. God is all-loving and all-powerful. God knew you before you were born. God can see the future. Hell exists. If you accept these four tenets of modern Christianity, which most Christians do because the Bible reinforces these ideas multiple times, then you also believe that an all-loving God chooses before people are even born if they will go to hell. A lot of time, I've noticed that when people start to draw this same conclusion, they will either start believing in purgatory, believe that there is no hell, or believe that our own free will chooses our final destination. For me, I don't really believe anymore, but I know there are thousands of people that struggle with this idea and do every kind of mental gymnastic to make it not exactly what it is. This is Calvinism. Many Christians reject Calvinism for the reasons you describe. The birthday paradox. Read that in a room of 23 people there is a 50% chance that at least 2 people have the same birthday. In a room of 30, the chance jumps to 80%. At 40, that jumps to almost 90%. The catch though is that you will never reach 100% unless you have a room of 367 people. That is the pigeonhole principle. Pretty cool. The math is legit. Edit. Yes, I know that this is leaning more towards statistical probability than traditional paradox. The nature of its compounding power of exponents and the absurdity of the result, however, contributes to it being a veridical paradox, thus the mindfuck. Also, it is 367 days, inclusive taking in consideration a leap year, grinning face with normal eyes. I've never heard that called a paradox before. Probably because it isn't. It's just counterintuitive. That's not really a paradox, that's just statistics. Not gonna lie, love that you pigeonhole principled to, presumably, include the 29th of February. I have had 4 surgeries this year and had my final one today. According to my mom, I was having a conversation about remembering something in the moment but not having a clue about it later. So while you know what's happening during that and can feel and experience everything once you wake up, if you forget even if conscious during because you forget it like it didn't happen. That's what my mom said. I told her because I can't remember it. Last Thursdayism. Basically it's a paradox that says that the entire universe was created last Thursday. All of your memories from beforehand are implanted there for you to believe that. All the things that date back physically before last Thursday, like dinosaur bones, are put there by the universe last Thursday. The entire universe started last Thursday, and there is no way to disprove it. This is a fallacy since there is no first member of any species. Despite this, it is almost certainly the egg. Some other bird may have laid the egg to the first chicken. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and hit the bell for more videos. Comment your views.